Okay, it's the end of the session. I'm here with Lulu. Well, Lulu's kind of a couple steps away. And this is Lulu's roadmap to success. So I'm sure she's probably going to pop her in the picture at some point, especially if I have some good treats for her. Let's see if she'll come over and get this treat. Let's see if we can get a little bit of Lulu head. There we go. That's all we get Lulu in this video. Such a beautiful girl. We're going to see her in puppy class. All right, so Lulu is a very fearful dog. She was not abused. She was gotten as a puppy, but she is a corona dog, so she wasn't exposed to a lot of people. And she didn't get a chance to go to puppy class until tomorrow. Are you okay, sweetheart? Watch that noggin. So basically, dogs go through developmental periods, and this is why it's so important if you have a puppy that you get them around a lot of other people, a lot of other puppies. Up until 14 weeks is the time, 3 weeks to 14 weeks is the most important developmental period. So important they call it the critical socialization period. Now she's missed that. That means that we're gonna have to work harder to get her some good positive interactions. So the video above will help, and what I'd like the guardians to do is try to arrange at least once a week, but I'd like to see if you can do it more often, to arrange to have a neighbor or a friend come by and practice the stuff that's in the video above. I'd also like you coincidentally, or at the same time, or before that, teaching her how to catch. Now remember, for the catch, you show a treat and you just throw it once, and it's going to hit her in the nose and fall on the ground. You pick it up and give it, certain person sitting next to her gives it back to the thrower. And you keep on doing this, and that motivates the dog to want to snatch it out of the air. When she snatches it out of the air, you can say the word catch if you need to, but most dogs just kind of figure it out. So this is a game, so that might be a bridge. They might meet people with the greeting that we have in the video above. Then we might drop the treats on the ground to get her more comfortable. The next stage would be to have the guest throw. But all these things, if she's uncomfortable with it, I'd like the guardians to do them first. Then she sees the guardians do them, and then the guest does them. Well, I'm warmed up, I'm engaging, I like doing that, and I get a treat, and everything's good. And then you could use the catch as another one, and a great way for the dog to engage with the guest. So if you want to say, Lulu, saying something in a higher pitch and a cadence of 3 or 4 often is a way to get dogs to engage or do something or move forward. Usually when you're riding a horse, you're like, whoa, when you want it to slow down. So you elongate the word and you kind of have a little dip in the middle of it. Come. You're doing so good. Sit. Look at that. You can't see any of that, but she's doing great. Okay, so we really need to build up her confidence, and that's really what I like to see the guardians practicing this, because the more people she meets in a positive way with all these interactions, the more that confidence is going to be like a bulletproof vest, and the more experience she gets, the more thicker that vest is, and it's going to make her better equipped to deal with unusual situations for the rest of her life. Now, dogs' true personality starts setting around 9 months, and it solidifies for large breed dogs about 3 years. So you definitely have some time to work on it, but the older she gets, the harder and more work it's going to be involved. So I'd like you to really take advantage of this as much as you possibly can. So I would like to see at least once a week, you have somebody coming by and doing it, and different people. But make sure the most important thing is the people are going to listen to you. If the people are not going to listen, or they're going to stand, or whatever it is, find somebody else. We need to build success on top of success. Going slow and steady when it comes to fearful dogs is much better than doing it quickly and having setbacks. All right, we also talked about exercise. And these dogs are both, one of them's 5 or 4? 5, and then she's only a puppy. So they both need some exercise. Now remember, I want you to check with your vet for the doggy stairmaster, and probably for fetch as well. Just ask your vet, because some dogs have hip dysplasia. The ball comes out of the socket, and the more that happens as a puppy, the more likely it is for the rest of their life it becomes painful and debilitating. So sometimes they'll x-ray the hips just to see whether or not the socket looks good, and they might ask you to wait off and doing the doggy stairmaster for a while. That's okay. So you can play fetch, but either case, remember, we want to do it with an empty stomach, 90 minutes after exercising, after eating, before we exercise the dog, or just feed them afterwards. And after exercise, they need at least 10 minutes to recover, at least. Some dogs need a little bit more. And driving the car does not count. So basically, what we want to do is find out what the dog's maximum number of fetches is. So we throw it and keep on throwing it until she just plops down and says, I'm not bringing it back. Maybe that was 48 fetches, probably a high number for her. And then once we know that is, then we're going to exercise her 50 to 75% of that number multiple times a day. She needs sleep probably about, she needs sleep throughout the day, but she probably needs exercise about every 2 to 4 hours. And so I'd like you to be proactive when it comes to exercising. Don't wait for her to react. If you know that the lawn service is coming to deal with their lawn at 4 o'clock on Sunday, guess what? At 3:15, we should be getting her some exercise. The doggy stairmaster is throwing those treats up and down the stairs, and that's the one, again, don't do that until you talk to your vet just to make sure everything's okay, because that might be something we have to wait for later. But fetch is a good one that you can do going for walks. Now remember, on walks, we want to have a loose leash. We're not going to use the prong collar, and I'd like to actually get a harness for her, so we're taking any of that tension off the neck, because I think it's going to contribute to her stress level a little bit. You might want to look into getting one that has the saddle bag, so you don't have to do two purchases, and you can actually put some water or sand in there. But that's also something to talk to your vet. A lot of vets don't want you to actually carry weight for the dog until they're over a year old, because their bones are a little bit softer. And so, but you might just get her one, and you just don't have it filled, and that way when she gets old enough, you can start putting stuff in there. Makes the walk a little bit more efficient. Now remember, on walks, sit. That was a little bit late. But remember, on walks, she's going to burn more energy by sniffing than she does from walking. And also remember, if you have a tight leash, you can prevent her from being able to flight and cause her to fight. Also, try to avoid leading her to places on walks where there's going to be barking dogs, because that kind of sets her off and or makes her feel uncomfortable. And we don't want to add to wherever she's at. We want to keep it where it is and actually help it go down. So what I would recommend, you have the beautiful yard over here that really opens up in a wilderness. Put her on a leash and get her walking there. I know she can walk there off leash, but we want her to practice walking on leash in an environment that she likes, that she's stimulated and she enjoys and has a positive experience with it. And after you've done that for maybe once, and it doesn't have to be a marathon walk. Let's say you only have 5 minutes. That's okay. Just let her sniff as much as you want and kind of follow her to keep the tension off the leash. And after a while, after about a week of doing that, for whatever the length of time is, at the end of the walk, I'd like you to walk her a little bit here, and then maybe walk her up your driveway and walk one house, then turn around, come back inside. So we're going to precede it by the easy walk, the stimulating walk, and all the fun stuff, and then we're going to start kind of gradually adding. Next time we go to 2 houses and 3 houses. But if she starts shutting down, we might back up and go back to only 1 house. The idea is we would love her to be sniffing and checking out her environment like a dog should. And so we're not going to have a loop, we're just going to have a duration, and we're going to walk however much time we have to walk. But I would like to see her getting at least 1 walk a day, even if it's only like a 5-minute walk, 2.5 minutes that way, 2.5 minutes back. That's a very short walk. I'd like to see them more often than that. But stimulating and getting her that confidence from different experiences is going to be really beneficial. Let me see, what else? We also talked about using getting an Omega Paw treat ball. Now that's one of them. There are hundreds of treat dispensing toys and puzzles. We have a boxer in the house, and the boxer, Cooper, is very smart and figures out these things quickly. So it might be Cooper figures out, and then after Cooper's done, then we give it to her. Now there was a little bit of I don't want to say a fight, a little bit of a disagreement over a bully stick. So we want to make sure that we're not having the dogs compete for stuff on the floor. So if we're throwing the doggy stairmaster or stuff like that, we're not going to have them do it simultaneously. Now, I do like having dogs practice being together with high-value items if we can do it in a safe way. So sometimes what I'll do is use a tether. Now, I don't ever use a tether if the dog is fearful or reactive, but I can maybe put a leash around one of these bars of the fence here, and then attach to the dog, and then give her a bully stick, and then do it to the other dog on the other side. So they're nearby, and they're able to eat. Now, if they are staring at each other, if they're getting freezing or something like that, that's not healthy. So we would increase the distance. We might have a partition in between them temporarily, and then maybe gradually lean it. But we would like to have them practice having objects together where they can't get to each other, so the humans feel comfortable. There's not going to be a fight, but it can't be tension on a leash, and it can't be pulling and lunging towards each other. That's negative. That's not what we're looking for. We'd like her to build up confidence and say, when I have a bone, my roommate has a bone, and we're both happy, and we don't have to try to get the other's bone, and we can't get there anyways, and I haven't been able to do it for a certain period of time, so I'm used to not doing it. Go ahead and pet for that.
Good girl.
There we go. Remember, instead of saying good girl, we're just going to say good. Now, if the dog is barking or reacting like that, we can distract the dog. Now, if I give her a treat when she barks, and that could be associated. Now, if it's okay, if it's a guest and the guest is building up confidence with her, if she barks, it's okay to still give her a treat at that point. But we'd like to get to the point where we're giving a treat for sitting or laying down, or getting on the or approaching, or do something positive as opposed to the barking part. But that's okay to do to begin with. But remember, any attention is validating. So if she barks and we correct her or say her name or punish her, then she's just like, that's rewarding and it's validating for her. So the best thing you can do is increase the distance or ignore it. But a lot of times I'd like you to be that proactive. So if she is barky, maybe if it's a time of the day where a lot of people are coming home from work, then we would actually exercise her first and then have her out here. Maybe when people are going around, we have treats. And she like looks at the people and you see her mouth starting to open like she's going to bark, drop a treat. And she goes and gets the treat. And she looks at him and her mouth starts to open again and you drop a treat. You're beating her to the punch. But again, if we could exercise her first, then we do this exercise, she doesn't have as much fight, or I want to say fight, but enough verve to really protest a lot. And we're helping her practice sitting here and not barking at people. Also remember the not barking command that I was showing you? So I was saying woof to Cooper, and then he spoke, and then I gave him a treat. Woof, he barks, and I give him a treat. So woof becomes the command word for barking. So you want to keep on doing that until you say woof and he speaks. And then you go woof, he speaks, and you give him the treat. And then you say quiet, wait a half second, and give him a treat. He's not going to know what it is, but the end result is still the same thing. He's not barking. And eventually you woof, and he speaks, and you give him the treat, and then you say quiet, wait 1 second, and give him the treat. So you're doing on, then off. And at first it's half a second of silence before you give the treat. And you can say silent, quiet, cayete, whatever you want to say. But gradually start elongate. So eventually you say quiet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, treat. Don't say treat. You say, and remember, say good when you give the treat as a marker if you want to do that, and try to avoid saying good dog. All right, let me see. We also, other forms of exercise, order snuffle mats. Get a snuffle mat for each one of them. Have them eat out of their snuffle mat. Eat in order. So I would have Cooper eat first. When he's in the room, she's not allowed to come in. So he gets to eat without her sweating her, and that'll help him slow down his feeding process. When he gets done, he leaves, we pick up his mat, and then she gets invited in the room. When she's in, he's not allowed to come in. So both dogs see the humans controlling the situation, not letting the dogs come in, which gives them credit as providing a safe environment and being in that higher social status or leadership, whatever you want to call it. And also helps the dog practice a little self-restraint. I want to go eat the food, but I have to wait for Cooper to eat first. And that also helps her see herself a little bit more junior to Cooper. All right, we also can get an Omega Paw treat ball, but like I said, there's a whole bunch of other treat puzzles and toys that you can get, and those are great ways to preoccupy the dog and stimulate them mentally as well as physically. We'd also like to, you're going to eat some weird stuff there, sweetie. Let me see, we also, I guess that's it for exercise. There we go. We also talked about rules and structure. So a lot of dogs don't have any rules because we perceive rules as negative. Now, a couple dog psychology or whatever, learning or whatever you want to call it. Dogs learn through repetition, consistency, and good timing. You have 2 seconds to correct a reward. That's why if I'm using a prong collar and I see somebody that I really like and I pull towards them and it bites me in the neck, whatever I'm looking at when it bites me is where I think that pain came from. So I see a lot of dogs that go from, I'm a happy person seeing my neighbor to I want to bite my neighbor. And also with her, she's just so anxious, it's just going to add cortisol to her blood, and it's just going to manifest in a bad way. So try to get her a harness, and you want to try to get a harness with a clip in the front. If you have the clip in the back, that really can promote more pulling because it'll activate their opposition reflex. And if you want, let us know. We can have Dominique or somebody come by and teach the dog. When it gets to the end of the leash, to automatically come back to you instead of pulling on the leash. That's more training. This is really more a behavior session. We want to just focus on her fears and her reactivity. Okay, we also talked about Premax. Premax are basically a less desirable behavior earning you a more desirable behavior. So if I tell her to go to the door, when you go to the door, if she wants to go out, tell her to sit once. If she sits, open the door and let her out. If she doesn't sit, she doesn't get the reward. So that is a way to motivate your dog to do things without using treats. Now, it can't be Premac, it has to be a behavior, not a reward of a treat or something like that. But basically, you can do this for you have a little sliding gate that you use for your front porch. Tell her to sit before you move that. And don't go put your hand on it and then say sit. Sit. Make her do the action first, only then do I move it. If she doesn't move it, then come and sit down where Laura is. Lean back in your check some stuff on your phone, wait a minute. After 1 minute, go back and command her again, sit. Reward. And then if she doesn't sit, then I walk away and sit down for 2 minutes. Next time I sit down for 4 minutes, 8 minutes. The delaying part is not a Premac. That's just my little addition to it. And so eventually she'll go sit at the door as her way of saying, can I please go outside? And when she does sit down, fly that door open as fast as you can. Then you can eventually do it going in or out of the door, any doors in your house, the door in your car, the sliding door for your screen porch, and all the rest of the stuff. You can also do a Premac for sit before I put the leash on you. Sit before I prepare your food. Sit before I throw the ball playing a game of fetch. So we're just asking the dog to engage with us a little bit. Now, we also went over that touch targeting exercise. And so the word that you used was target. So what you're going to do is you're going to flash that hand. And Laura's going to correct me if I get the timing off. So you're going to flash the hand and say touch. She comes over and touches it. You would say good. And then you're going to give her the treat as the reward. And at first I would have you do it with about 10 treats, and you flash this hand. And then remember, if you flash and she doesn't go for it, pull back and I flash a little bit closer. Make sure you're at her nose level or lower, and keep your hand tilted to the head, sweetheart, like this. Don't go in a weird angle where you can't put the treat here. And if I do it twice and she doesn't do it, or she goes off, disengage. Wait for her to re-engage with you before you start doing that game again. Don't try to compete with her attention, because it's just, leaders don't have to do that. If you have good social status, they come to you as opposed to the other way around. So I'd like you guys to do this with about 10 treats. Switch hands, and at first you're chopping here, here, then you're going here, then you're going here, then you're going here. Eventually you should be able to go like this, and she runs from 15 feet away and touches her nose. Yes, or excuse me, good. And then we give her the treat. Once she can do that with you guys, when you have guests comes over, that's a wonderful little game for her to run around the table and just like, it's too early for you to do it yet? She's not doing it. She gave me a funny look. But they flash the hand, she comes over, yes, and then we give her the treat. And so she gets to engage with the guest in a positive way. I use the touch targeting exercise to reposition my dog for pictures, to put him in a harness. A lot of people manhandle their dogs, and that's going to activate their opposition reflex. So using this to manipulate a dog that looks this way to take a picture is much better. And it's a fun game for them to do. Also, when you're petting her, try to remember to try to pet here if all things are equal. Just try not to pet her up here. And the guardians here aren't doing, a lot of people, I haven't seen it, but a lot of people shove their dog's butt into the ground if they don't sit. We get frustrated, they're not listening to us fast enough. That really just means we probably need to practice more. Just pull out some treats. And so you would say, sit, and then when her butt hits the ground, you would say yes, and then give her the treat. If you're teaching her to lay down, you would say down, and when her chest hits the ground, you say yes, and then you give her the treat. So you can use the same kind of rhythm that we did for anything else. Passive training, very good. The dad just did that perfectly. So, all right. So, other rules: you can't be in the kitchen when we're preparing food. Can't be around the dinner table when we're eating. Do not feed either dog any food from the table. That's going to cause them to want to come. If you want to do that, I wouldn't advise it. But if you're going to do it, I would put it off to the side and feed them after your meal, and put it in their dish or in a different location. Otherwise, you're teaching them to come and try to take from you. And when you have two dogs and we've had a fight over it, that can quickly transcribe in the direction we don't want. Okay, we also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is if you want to pet the dog or the dog wants you to pet it. Dog nudges you, you tell the dog to sit. If it sits within 2 seconds, you pet it on its chin and pet it as long or as little as you want. If it doesn't sit, you lean back and show the dog I can watch TV, I can look at the squirrel, I can play, what a game or whatever it is. Playing hard to get works great for dog training. And then wait for the dog to disengage and then try it again. That'll make the dog more inclined to want to listen to you the next time. Remember to use the watchword of paycheck. If you are petting the dog, if you catch someone and you think that they're petting without a purpose, even if I did it right, I would stop petting the dog, tell the dog to sit or lay down, and then I would pet it on its chin and say, actually, I did it right and you missed it, but thanks for reminding me, because I do forget to pet without a purpose. Also, passive training, which is celebrating the things the dog does that you want. So remember, if she's coming towards you and she's a foot away, say come, and then pet her. And then you can say yes when you pet her if you want to use that good marker, good instead of yes. Same thing if she's about to sit down, right before her butt hits the ground, say the word sit, and then pet her. And her chest is about to hit the ground, crash or whatever the words, and then pet her. And you can say yes when you're petting at the same time. But so now you're going to reward the dog for the things that you want them to do as opposed to things you don't want them to do. And remember, if they jump up on you, just freeze and become boring. When they jump down, then tell them to do something else to reward them for that. Now at the door, Cooper was a little bit, I want to say he was aggressive. He was territorial, he was a little bit standoffish, he got a little stiff. So the exercise for that, I would have your guests come up to the door and just have your guests start walking from the street up to your front door. And as soon as Cooper freezes, give him a treat and say, yeah, I mean, you can. I'm thinking about marking and all that. I would just at this point just give them a treat and have the person approach a couple steps and stop, and then they give them a treat and have them turn around and walk away and approach. So again, they're only taking 2 steps and he gets a treat. Then eventually 3 steps and he gets a treat. 4 steps he gets a treat. 5 steps he walks all the way to the porch and gets a treat. So when people come on my porch, it's a good thing. Now I'm not going to go over our little faux command that we went over on camera because it'll kind of ruin it for what the guardians want to do. But remember to do that when you see the little thing that elicits the response and say the word that we talked about. So then you can prompt that behavior when you want, as opposed to the dogs barking every time somebody comes to the door. This way you're in control as opposed to the dog. Because these dogs have gone at it a little bit, and there's something called redirected aggression. If a dog is frustrated and it can't reach the thing because the door is blocking me, I might turn and bite what's right here. And that's one of the reasons why we don't like physically handling or punishing dogs. A lot of times the dogs will bite you if you spank them enough or push them down or pin them, alpha rolls, and the rest of that stuff. So we don't want to do anything because she's going to be a really big dog. And when she makes her mind up to do something, we're not going to stop her. So the key is we want her to want to do all these things because we put her in a situation where if she does them, good things happen. She's rewarded for doing them. So why would I do anything else? Why would I bark at the door? Not barking gets me a treat. Going to the bed gets me a treat, and so on and so forth. So last thing I want to talk about a little bit is her body language. So remember, I'd like you guys to get practiced and reading her body language. So her ears are a little bit interesting because of what happened with the taping. But if you look at her, right now I'm looking at her body language is good. She's breathing a little bit heavier than I would normally anticipate, but her feet are underneath her. She's kind of got a little bit of a wiggle, jiggle to her. She's not snapping her head around. So I want to look at, first of all, how is she carrying her weight? Is her weight underneath her? Is she leaning forward or away? Is she have one foot way out to the side? Then I kind of look at the head position, the mouth opening or closed, and the ears. Like I said, is the dog licking its lips? Is it yawning? Is it going from an open mouth like Callie's mouth is here to closing and freezing and looking down? That's a big warning. So if you see your dog do those things and you call it away or throw the ball away or a treat away and get the dog to move away from the thing, I don't have to bark to get it to go away. I just walked away, and when I turned around, the delivery guy was gone. So the idea is to look and read your dog's body language when it's neutral, when you're at home and she's nice and relaxed and there's no reason for her to be upset. And then, very good. And then when she's upset, look at her ears, look at her body posture, look at her breathing, look at her tail nut, and all the rest of that stuff. And eventually you'll start to identify the little things that are her indicators that I'm feeling uncomfortable. That allows you to increase the distance or distract her. So what does she have to do? Nothing. She doesn't have to practice barking or lunging or any of those things because mom and dad took care of it. Well, she's upset because the jet is interrupting this video, but she's just a polite dog. So what can you say? All right, so now if you want to, the loose leash walking I know is important for you guys. I know that's why you guys were using the prong collars and stuff like that. So if you want to work on that stuff, let us know because you had us come out. We'll hook you up with a discount on having Dominique. Dominique right now is on the injured reserve because she's around somebody with COVID. She's tested negative, but we're going to make sure everybody in the house is positive before she goes out. But she can teach a dog to walk and a service dog heel. But remember, it is not appropriate to ask a dog to work 24/7. Asking a little bit of work is okay. But afterwards, we need to let them do their own thing. And that's why I don't like having a dog walk on a heel. Because when we're walking a dog, that should be an enjoyable activity for the dog. And if we're asking them to work, then that's not a lot of fun. Yes, we see the neighbor over here. So, Lulu, come here. So she's barking. We saw the neighbor in the video going back. Lulu. So I'm throwing treats away from there, and she's moving away and she's sniffing up on the ground. It gives the neighbor the ability to do whatever the neighbor's got to do. And you can do the same sort of thing where maybe we have the neighbor appear and she gets a treat, and then the neighbor disappears. Kind of what I talked about for your front door. So those are nice ways. We'd rather just have her see the neighbor as an indicator that I might get a treat as opposed to somebody to bark at. And remember, if the dog, good attention, bad attention from us is pretty much the same thing. So if she barks and we correct her, she's like, yeah, cool, we're both barking. All right, Lulu, you come over here and get a treat. Lulu, come here. This is my buddy Lulu, at the top of Lulu's head at least. And that's Lulu's bark. And this is Lulu's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.